Hello and welcome to episode 56 of the Primary Maths Podcast, the show where we talk all things primary maths, with me, John Cripwell.
And with me, Becky Brown.
Just about with me, John Cripwell, actually. I apologise to anybody listening, but I am at the tail end, I think, Becky, of a bit of a cold and a winter virus. And yeah, my voice isn't perhaps at its best this week, so I apologise to anybody listening.
You do have a nice husky undertone this week,
there
John.
is that,
For anyone
yeah.
listening, it is John, I promise.
Yeah, maybe this one you could listen to if you're trying to get to sleep or something. It will sort of soothe you into,
Yes.
turn up the bass. It'll be fine. So yes, but other than that, Becky, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you, John. I feel like it's become tradition for me to discuss the weather, so I will just say how much I've enjoyed the sunshine this week. Apparently,
as you've said that, it's just started raining here. But it has been lovely to see blue skies and a bit of sun. It's been gorgeous. And it's been a busy week, hasn't it, in the education world? Because, of course, on Monday this week, the government launched the Education White Paper, which was kind of billed as a bit of a SEND reform paper, understandably, because there was lots in there about SEND, wasn't there?
There was. I think what it comes down to, well, not what it comes down to, it's a very big document. This isn't a summary of it, but generally what is good for inclusion, good inclusive teaching is good teaching, isn't it?
Yes.
Just keeping that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And is this going to solve all the problems with the SEND system? Probably not, but it's got to start somewhere, hasn't it? We've got to be doing something.
That's it.
And hopefully it will have a positive rather than a negative impact. Obviously, I looked at it from a primary maths point of view. So I did write a little article on my Substack, which I'll link in the show notes to this episode. Do have a look in there. If you were following me before on Substack, sadly, I lost access to that particular Substack. I don't know why. I don't know how, but they can't help me get back in. So it's gone. It's gone, Becky. I mean, it's still there, but I can't access it anymore. So I have a new shiny Substack. If you're not familiar with Substack, it's a place where you can sort of write articles and people can follow and stuff. It's kind of social media / a blog. But it's totally free. So if you want to follow my ramblings on there, I'll put a link into the comments, and I sort of go into a little bit of detail on what the education white paper might mean. I mean, it's only proposals at this point, but what it might mean for primary maths. Really interesting. One of the themes that seemed to come out of it was this idea of early numeracy again, and that's something that keeps coming up again and again, it feels like, over the last couple of years. A real focus on early numeracy and what's happening in EYFS and even pre-EYFS as well, which is interesting.
Yeah, definitely, John. We find early numeracy mentioned lots, don't we? And I think we know that you will get to a point where you're putting in some structures that are a bit too late, really. We need to get it right from the beginning, don't we? So it is so important.
Yeah, there's so much research. We talked about it on the podcast before, and certainly I've written about it as well. Loads of research that says that sort of attainment at the end of EYFS can predict later attainment as well, and children's experiences and attitudes towards maths coming into reception can have an indicator of their later attainment as well. So it is crucial, a crucial time in any child's education. It lays the foundations, Becky, for what comes later. It's almost as if they titled it like that. So, it was really interesting to see that coming in there this week. We thought that we were going to be able to mention an exciting project that Twinkle are about to release, but we've just been told to pause on that for another week. So stay tuned. There is exciting news. Yeah, there is exciting news coming, and it genuinely is exciting news on a couple of fronts, actually, and definitely something to look out for. But we'll keep you in anticipation for just one more week, hopefully, and then we'll be able to tell you a little bit more about that. But what were we going to talk about today, Becky, as his voice breaks? I'll take a little sip of my tea.
So, Jon, we're going to have a little chat about manipulatives. You have been talking about that on LinkedIn this week, so we're going to go into that in a bit more detail. We've got some listener, I think we've got a listener question. We've got some comments from your LinkedIn post as well to share. I've got a little bit of maths of life. There might be time for some research in 60-ish seconds, but we'll see how we go. So, yeah, loads to talk about today, Jon.
Yeah, well, let's get cracking, shall we? So, one of the things, the focus of this episode, really, my rant of the week, it's not going to be a rant, Becky, but I think of it in those terms sometimes. It's just this idea that manipulatives can't think, really. That's what I've been pondering recently, is the real purpose of manipulatives. I know we've mentioned it on the podcast before, but I think it's worth just bearing in mind. And uh, getting to the purpose of them again, but also how we evaluate what children are thinking about when they're using manipulatives. And I was thinking about this week, and thinking about a lesson that I saw where children were using manipulatives. They were using some cubes. They were making a mathematical structure out of cubes, a multiplicative structure. And it was about commutativity in multiplication, easy for him to say, about commutativity in multiplication. And when I asked the pupil what they were doing, they said that they were making it out of cubes. Thinking about what Kate Quain said on our interview episode this week about how important it is to consider what a child means by the words that they use and not just correct them. I did think it was interesting, though, that what they said was that they were making it out of cubes, but actually the purpose of it was to try and show that 3 lots of 4 is the same as 4 lots of 3. And I wasn't convinced that the child was, at that point, certain of that, if that makes sense. It felt very much like they were doing the task of making the structure without really thinking about what the structure was showing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's quite telling, isn't it? Making it with the cubes shows what they're doing, but not what they're thinking.
Yeah, and it's how do we go from that doing to thinking? And that's where I think the skill of the teacher obviously comes in terms of that knowledge of the right questions to ask. So that you can draw attention to something and help them notice things. And that's really difficult to get that across a school, I think. Doesn't matter how big a school is, everybody's got lots of different priorities and things like that, but trying to get that consistency in thought from a teacher's point of view, I think is quite difficult to do across a school. And that's where really good PD sessions are so invaluable, whatever they might look like. But yeah, just thinking about how we can question those children. And we know that the concrete pictorial abstract framework is is a sound framework. We know that it's not a tick list. We know that it isn't linear. It's not hierarchical. It's not that abstract is better than concrete or pictorial is better than using a manipulative. But I do feel that is sometimes how it's still seen in some schools' planning formats. It's kind of become again, we've talked about this term of non-negotiable, Becky, before, but this idea that, yeah, I'm doing it. I've got the manipulatives out, therefore I can tick that off and not worry about it. And actually it goes beyond that, doesn't it, in terms of their effectiveness and making effective use of those resources in a maths lesson.
Yeah, it comes back again, and we have spoken about this multiple times about teachers really being shown and understanding why they're doing things. I think teaching has become a bit of a checklist, hasn't it? And some of those things maybe don't have as much purpose as others. We all know it can be a bit frustrating when you've got a big long list and some things seem to matter and some maybe don't as much. But I think it's really important that those PD sessions explain why, why is this a good strategy, so that the teachers have a bit more of an understanding of it. I remember I was working in a 5 form entry school, so a very big school, and it was a long time ago now, so you'll forgive the fact that we were working in math sets. So every morning for maths and English, actually, we would set across the year groups. We'd have five 5 different math sets. And I remember the teacher of what we will call, and this is not a good labeling system to use now, but the lower set, being very proud about the idea that his children were doing exactly the same calculations as everybody else, the subtraction calculations. I think it was 3-digit subtraction, if I remember. But it was a clear case of him seeing the outcome rather than the process. So in their books, they had the calculations provided and they had filled in the correct answers. But what they had actually done was just use place value counters, and they were able to do that. And that in itself was a good start. But there was no link between the using of the place value counters and the writing of the numbers in the calculation. So just another example of how just looking at a piece of work doesn't reflect what's actually happening in the thinking and what's happening in reality, I don't think.
No. And yeah, I think that's a really good example. And the other thing that I think is often missing is kind of that time to explore and notice things, which I think sometimes when you get the manipulatives out, you want the children to be using them, and you want to show them how to use them, and then you model how to do it, and they then copy. And I think there's a chance, I'm not saying this always happens, but there's a chance at that point that it just becomes procedural, and that actually they're not seeing the structure, they're just following the procedure of, okay, Miss or Sir has done this, I do the same thing. That whole I do, we do, you do approach, which we know can be powerful in some contexts. The more I come back to it, and it's going to be interesting actually, because a guest I'm speaking to tomorrow, actually, as we record this on a Thursday, I'm speaking to them tomorrow. It will be out in a couple of weeks. We're talking about the topic of direct instruction, and I'm really interested to hear what he has to say about that, because the more I question that approach, the less convinced I am that it always works in maths, and that actually we need a bit of more time for exploration and making connections ourselves. Excuse me. But it is difficult because time is such a precious resource. So having that time to explore isn't always practical, is it? And it's really frustrating that we want to give them time to try things out, see what happens, notice things, make a conjecture, test it, that sort of thing. But actually, it's not always practical to do that. It's kind of a frustration that extends across different areas of maths, that there's just not as much time as we would like there to be to really get under the bonnet of these things.
Yeah, I think in maths we are probably still struggling against the idea that the more work completed on a piece of paper shows the maths there. I think all
Yeah.
those wonderful problem-solving based skills you've just mentioned, John, conjecturing and generalizing and exploring, are so important. But I've had teachers say to me in the past, "Well, I've done a whole lesson, but I've got nothing to show for it."
Yeah.
Well, you've got
Yeah.
wonderful things to show for it. You
There's
just
so
can't
much
capture them.
thinking. It's just amorphous, isn't it? It's hard to capture them. And we went through a phase, didn't we, of taking a photo of things and putting it into the books as if that somehow caught the essence of what had happened in that lesson. I would challenge anybody who says that is a good use of anybody's time, whether that's teacher, children, or TA's time. I think if when I'm working with teachers now, that we talk a lot about planning prompts and questions that teachers might have in their heads when they're planning a lesson. And so for me, I think, and this goes back to the episode with Joe Austin, episode 50, where Joe talked about the right manipulative for the right lesson. Also, episode 15, a little bit with Tom Isherwood as well, talks about the same sort of thing in terms of the lesson design. What is it that this particular manipulative will allow the child to see that they couldn't see or might not see without it? And for me, if the answer is nothing, they could have done it on a number line or in their head, then I'm not sure why it's there. If it's not helping them to see something that they might not do otherwise, then I'm not sure there's a purpose to having it necessarily at that point in the lesson. So yeah, just something, food for thought, really. I did ask about this on LinkedIn. Every week I try and pose a question. Feel free to add me, connect with me on LinkedIn, join in the conversation over on there as well. I asked the question about whether manipulatives always lead to mathematical thinking. And I think we had about 40 odd responses to it this week. It's obviously one that people felt strongly about. And what I love about LinkedIn and um, uh, what I love about LinkedIn particularly at the moment is you get such a range of different experiences and backgrounds and things on there. So I've just picked out a couple of responses. So one was from Tony Staniff from Rethink Maths. He said, for me, the real power of the concrete stage should be about building a mental image. That's kind of what we were talking about. You know, what's it help you to see? We don't spend enough time visualizing, if you ask me, Tony says. If a child is making 10 from 8 using a 10 frame, so they've got 8 and they need to make 10, the point isn't just that they can do it with the counters in front of them, it's that eventually they can see those 2 empty spaces on the 10 frame in their head. That's what we're working towards. I just don't think we spend nearly enough time on that structural side. And yeah, totally agree. He also says people will argue not enough time in the curriculum, but if you get it right, it will really help long term. And I think as somebody who spent a lot of their time teaching in year 6, it's really easy to see where those gaps are for children who haven't got that sort of mental image of that structure of the maths there. So thank you so much for your thoughts, Tony. And then just one other from Jess. Becky, I don't know if you want to read that one, save my voice.
Yes, will do. So she enjoyed the question, John. It's a great conversation. So anyone that hasn't seen it, do pop over to LinkedIn and have a little look, because all the responses are really interesting. So Jess said that she sees a lot of people using manipulatives procedurally. They tell students what to do with them, so there's no conceptual understanding. That's quite interesting, isn't it? That it's not just, she's talking about them being taught to use them for a procedure rather than to use them as a tool to investigate further.
Yeah. And if, I know we've said this before as well, I won't apologize for banging on about it, but manipulatives are not designed to be used as a tool or a crutch for actually solving a problem or following a procedure. Nobody is getting out their base 10 in order to solve a straightforward addition problem, are they, day to day? So if that's not the purpose of them, what is the purpose of them? The purpose of them is to see the structure of the maths and understand what's happening underneath the sort of manipulation of the numbers. So that's the reason, really, and that's what I think we need to keep our eyes on when we're planning these maths lessons.
It comes back a little bit to what we were saying. I think it was last week we were talking about scaffolding, might have been the week before, how it's a scaffold, isn't it? It's not meant to be there forever. It's meant to support a journey. And I think we need to remember that, but also remember that it's not a linear process. I think because it becomes part of that tick list and it's written as a CPA approach, it's like, well, now we've done the C and now we're going to move on. It doesn't work like that, does it? It's about doing them concurrently alongside each other, going back, all that sort of spiral that we've talked about before, that you're gradually building on that understanding.
I totally agree. And in that vein, Becky, we have had a listener question submitted.
Would you like me to read it, John, to save your voice?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So Priya, who was a maths lead at a junior school in West Midlands,
I feel like my. Can you remember Late Night Love? Back in the day, Becky, I don't know anybody old enough to listen to this. There was a radio show on late at night on sort of commercial local radio, but it was all across. Graham Torrington, as I remember. Late Night Love, he used to read out letters from people, love letters mostly, from people on. Did you have that wherever you were, Becky, back in the day?
Yeah, I did. And I'm not sure this is quite a love letter, but.
No. But it's just my voice and tone of voice at the moment. I feel if I read it out, it would be in that style. And that's not appropriate for this.
No.
So, no,
I'll read the question.
Read it. Yeah, that's fine.
So Priya says, we bought a load of new manipulatives last year and I'm already seeing them just sitting there. When I observe lessons, teachers get them out but don't really know what to do with them once they're on the table. How do you help teachers see what the resource is actually for?
Yeah,
Great
it's
question.
so frustrating, isn't it? When you you do your resource audit, you spend ages in the maths cupboard or wherever, or trying to get everybody to bring the resources to you to see what you've got. You order a load of new resources because everybody knows that they should be using them, and then you distribute them, and then nothing happens with them, and you just see them gathering dust. It's very frustrating. Or failing that, you see them being used for things other than maths, making guns or whatever, swords, and things. When I'm thinking about the multi-link cubes there in classes. So yes, Priya, I totally feel your pain here. Any ideas, Becky?
Well, I mean, great that they've been able to order a load of manipulatives. Obviously, we do know that it can be really difficult if you're in a classroom where you don't have any or you have a scarcity of them. So great that you've got them. So the issue here isn't the resources themselves and having them. It's really a CPD conversation, isn't it? It's trying to make sure in a very packed CPD timetable that there's time in a staff meeting or an inset just to go through with staff what the structure is that can be uncovered using each of those manipulatives.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes if you don't have that subject knowledge or that pedagogical knowledge, it can be difficult because, take, for instance, base 10 and Cuisenaire rods. They look sort of similar, but they have totally different purposes, don't they? So, obviously base 10, sometimes Deans they're referred to, really good for showing a structural understanding of place value, particularly, whether that's integers or even decimals. Um, uh, it really uncovers that base 10 numbering system, hence the name base 10, that we use. Whereas the Cuisenaire rods are really good for showing relationships between numbers, and both additive and multiplicative relationships. They represent lengths and proportional size of things, rather than just, rather than being there to show the place value side of things. So it's worth, I would say, Priya, if you've got an inset day, or something like that, running a session where you get all the manipulatives out and you have a think about what job is each of these doing, because they're not interchangeable necessarily. And there's definitely some things are better for than others.
Yeah, absolutely. Good luck with that, Priya. I think that CPD is going to be the key there to unlocking those resources in your maths lessons.
Absolutely. Right. Shall we move on to maths of life, Becky?
Yes, so nice segue here, John. So we've been talking about obviously set maths manipulatives that to use to represent and reveal structure, help children to notice things. But there's often a little bit of mileage as well in thinking about how we can use maybe non-math specific manipulatives in a well thought out way, perhaps maybe to engage a little bit more or just as a different way of looking at things. I was remembering in lockdown desperately trying to encourage manipulative use through the use
It's
of a
amazing,
video.
isn't it? How many times we come back to lockdown as being
Yes.
this moment that we remember trying all these innovative
Yes.
things,
That's it.
anything to try and engage people in doing some schoolwork. Yeah,
Yeah. And trying to use things in the videos that we were recording or the live lessons where children might have had at home, or for me, when I was recording at home, things that I had at
yeah,
home. And one of the things was the use of Lego. There are other types of building block available. But
yeah.
that
But
was one
none
of
of
my
them was quite as good, are they, Becky? Let's be honest.
I mean, that was my go-to. I mean, I actually made myself a frame out of Lego that I used to put my phone on so I could do a top-down video recording of me doing my maths. Got a photo of it somewhere. But I just was thinking about this. I finally got round to building my Christmas Lego set, finally, just before the end of February, this weekend. And actually struck by the idea that there's loads of maths in there, loads of maths in, well, lots of things, but in building blocks particularly. So, as always, did a little bit of exploration and focused mainly at the amazing manufacturing tolerances. So, that's the acceptable variation in dimensions. So, that when they're built, they've got to be within a certain minuscule tolerance. So, each Lego brick is accurate to within 0.002 millimeters.
That is a tiny, tiny fraction of a millimeter, isn't it?
Yeah, that is
Two
smaller than the
thousandths of a
thickness.
millimeter.
Yeah,
That's
smaller than the thickness of a human hair. So yeah, that is amazing. to be able to do that. So there are over 3,700 different shapes of building block. They all have to interlock, obviously, they in their different ways consistently across decades of manufacturing, dozens of factories, all had to be within that very tiny tolerance.
That's
Across the
amazing.
world.
I mean,
Yeah.
my kids love Lego. So next time I stand barefoot on a piece of Lego at 6 o'clock in the morning, I will, in that moment, think of the precision engineering that has gone into that tiny little block that is currently cutting into my foot. And I'll think, I wonder which of the 3,700 different element shapes this particular one is. I can probably
Yeah.
tell just by feel now whether it's whether it's got 4 studs or 6 studs. Yeah, I'll be able to tell the colour of it soon.
Are you an instruction follower or a creative builder, Jon?
We are so. Funnily enough, I was talking to my friend about this last week. We were in a Lego shop, and I was I picked up but did not purchase the Titanic Lego pack. I think it's got 9,000 pieces, something like that. It's a huge model of the Titanic, obviously, and we were talking about how Lego has sort of changed since I was at school, and how when I was given a pack of Lego as a kid, I'd just make things, usually houses and stuff. Whereas now, my children wouldn't dream of doing that particularly. They want to follow the instructions precisely. And sometimes you get those packs, don't you, that have got a booklet of these, you could make these things, and they'll tend to follow those as well. They're not big on. We did buy them some boards, the sort of the green boards, different colours I'm sure are available, that you can use as kind of the base boards that you can build different things on. So they do that a little bit, but I would say more than anything, we follow the instructions to the letter, and build whatever it is supposed to be.
Yeah. I've got one of each. One of my boys will only follow the instructions very rigidly. It's to the point that if he made a mistake, even though it didn't matter, he would have to go back and redo that bit. And the other one doesn't want to follow any instructions. It just wants a big box of Lego to just build things with. So it's quite interesting. But yeah, we're big building block fans. A little bit more maths for you, Jon. So according to the Lego group, if you take just 6 identical 2x4 bricks, there are 915,103,765 different ways to combine them.
No,
That's nearly 1 billion. Yes.
no.
If we start now, we could find them all.
Yeah.
That's a maths
what we would like
investigation.
is all of our listeners, please, if you could all send in 100 photos of different combinations.
Yes.
We'll see if we can make those nearly 1 billion different ways to combine them. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Exponential growth, I suppose. Crazy. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's a little walk down the thought of Lego, and I just think, or building blocks generally, so versatile, aren't they? You could do so many things with them. That you could use them to explain arrays. You can explore fractions. You could create physical bar charts with them, introduce ratios, and on and on. I found out that a minifigure is roughly 1:40 scale. I thought, how great would that be as a maths lesson, exploring how close that is to reality with ratios.
Yeah, that's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah. So possibilities
So
are endless.
if it is a scale of 1:40, how big would that minifig be if it was made real life? Could you draw it out on a big piece of paper? That seems like a fun way to spend a maths lesson.
Yeah.
And each part, you could take the head, couldn't you, and work out what that would be 40 times bigger, etc., and do it that way. Love that. That's a great idea. If anybody does that, please let us know. Send us some photos. We'd love to see
Send a photo. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Becky. Who knew? Who knew there was so much maths in Lego?
There you go. Just one thing. I'm sure we can explore other popular childhood pastimes in future episodes.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally down for that. Extra. Anybody's got an idea, send it in for us. We will find the maths in any area of your life. Not a problem. Free of charge. Part of the service. Not a problem at all. So, Becky, have you got your stopwatch ready? We have got time, I think, for some research in 60 seconds. And you know what? I'm going to do it in 60 seconds Well,
Okay. I'll
slightly
let you
less
do
than
a little.
120 seconds this week.
Okay. Oh, that'll be good. I'll let you do a little introductory bit before I
Thank
start the
you. That's
timer,
very kind of you.
John.
So, this was a study that um, friend of the show, Thomas Hunt, Dr. Thomas Hunt at the University of Derby, at the Centre for Mathematical Anxiety Research, wrote about on LinkedIn recently. And so it's about maths anxiety, and I will take it from there. Is that okay, Becky?
Off you go.
Okay, so this was a multi-country, cross-national survey that wanted to look at primary teachers particularly, and the prevalence of maths anxiety in primary teachers. And when they looked across all these different countries, they found that while average levels of maths anxiety across the sample were relatively low in primary teachers, UK primary teachers, who are, as we know, generalists who teach every subject. Some of these countries have specialists, a bit like secondary schools that teach different subjects. UK primary teachers showed notably higher anxiety about both maths and teaching it than colleagues in other countries. So obviously, averages can mask a huge range, but some teachers were very, very anxious indeed about maths and teaching maths, Becky. So that's my research in 60 seconds. Definitely under 60 seconds this time.
57.71 seconds.
Come on,
Good
get in.
job.
This
Yeah,
is
I
what
mean, I
happens when you have no voice. So that
yes.
was the research, and I think what's interesting from it, if you're listening to this podcast, I don't know, you might be somebody who's anxious about maths, but you might not be, and it's just an awareness, I suppose, of the adults working in school. Now, this study looked at teachers particularly and found that there were notably higher examples of maths anxiety amongst UK teachers. I don't know whether it looked at other staff in school as well, but I would imagine, just anecdotally, I know that there are other staff in school, support staff and things, who also might be feeling anxious about maths and teaching maths. And so, more than anything else, it's having an awareness of that fact, isn't it? And thinking about how we can support them.
Yeah, we talk a lot about maths anxiety, and we've talked about it before, haven't we? We talk a lot about it with children and possibly parents. We've talked before about parents carrying over their anxieties, but it is a very real issue in schools. And I think, yeah, like you say, having an awareness of it, whether it affects you directly or not, is really important in delivering training or just support. But yeah, it is a real issue, and it's a bit sad, isn't it? But
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
and it's hard, primary school teachers, when we're teaching in that general teaching everything, there's probably going to be something which you're less confident at. And it is a sad fact, but yes, definitely awareness can help.
I thought it was just really interesting that there was some research that noted that was true, and we did talk about it briefly. We looked at some months ago now at some research that had come out in Australia about a reluctance amongst primary teachers there to teach their equivalent of year six classes because of the maths at year six. We're talking about maths here that is obviously appropriate to 10 and 11-year-old children. And we've got teachers who are concerned about their confidence in teaching it. I firmly believe it's a confidence thing, not an ability thing. As somebody who was himself anxious about teaching maths in year five and year six, because when I did my teaching qualification, I didn't feel I was a competent mathematician at all. But, as we say, it's not an ability thing, it's just a confidence thing. And there are definitely things that you can do to support yourself. You only need to know, Becky, a little bit more than the children know. That's what I used to
Yes.
remind myself. Just know a little bit more than they know. That's all you need. Certainly to get yourself started.
Yeah, that was definitely my mantra when teaching French.
Yeah, oui, très bon. Yes, that being the limit of my French. Bonjour, baguette, duc à l'orange. That's about it, I'm afraid.
I mean, that's all you need.
Yeah, well,
It's
I'm a
fine.
long way from France here in Derby. You're a little bit closer. where you
Yes.
are on the coast. So you need to brush up. Becky, should we do some maths magic briefly?
Oh, yes. Always interested in some maths magic. John, what have you got to
Just
share?
inspired by Rob Easterway a few episodes ago, I thought we would do a little bit of maths magic. I haven't got my magic wand or a top hat or anything. I'm woefully underprepared, I'm afraid.
Could add one in later.
Yeah, we'll edit one in. For anybody listening on audio, I'll edit it in on audio. If you're watching on
Yes.
YouTube, I'm not sure I'll have time, but the audio version will definitely have a top hat and a magic wand. Don't worry. So, Becky,
Yes.
think of a number between 1 and 10 inclusive.
Okay. Yep.
Don't tell me a number.
Okay.
Don't tell me a number. I've got this because I am magic. Don't forget. So you don't need to tell me a number. I would like you to double your number.
Okay. Yeah. Doubled it.
I would like you to add 8.
Okay.
Still
Yep.
with me?
Yeah.
If you need to write this down, you can do. Don't worry.
I've just about got it.
Excellent. Could you halve your number, please? So halve the number that you were on.
Yes. Yeah.
And then could you subtract your original number? So, Becky, by the power of across the miles here, through the internet,
Yeah.
I think that your number is 4.
Yes.
Is that the number you're left with?
Yes.
You don't sound convinced.
Well, I wasn't sure whether you were guessing my original number or the number I ended
No,
with.
I wasn't guessing your original number. The
number I
that you
ended
got at
with
the
was
end,
4.
I'm so sorry. I should have. For anybody listening, I sort of had a bit of a coughing fit in the middle of all that, and we may have lost the thread of it slightly. I
Disrupted
apologise.
the magic.
But I don't have enough voice left to do the whole thing again, so you have to go with it.
My final number was indeed 4.
Hopefully, if you followed along at home as well, you also got the number 4. And I'm sure you can probably work out why you got the number 4. The key was where we added 8 and then halved it. So we doubled your original number. When we halved it, we then halved your original number. So it went back to what it was originally. Before we did that, though, we added 8 and then we halved that. So when you then subtracted your original number, you were left with just 4. So that will always work.
So you could do that with children at school, couldn't you, John? You could use manipulatives, get your counters out.
That's such a good idea, Becky.
By using those manipulatives, the manipulatives aren't doing the work for you. The counters wouldn't work out the algebra that's actually involved behind that, although we wouldn't necessarily have to call it that. But they're just making the thinking a bit more visible. You're actually visibly seeing the thinking behind it and the structure. They let you see the maths.
Yes. I think if you did that with 2 different colour counters, double-sided counters, so you've got your original number and what's happening to that original number, and you've got the 8 that's being added. And if I was doing this with counters, I'd probably get them to choose a number between 1 and 5. And instead of adding 8, maybe we'd add 4 or 6. Just so you've not got 3 million counters out on every table. But I think it's a really good example of where you can see that the manipulatives let you see what's happening with the maths, and really draw attention to it in a way that just writing it out wouldn't necessarily.
Yeah, perfect use of making thinking a bit more visible, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Right.
So,
John, you will be pleased to hear that we are nearly at the end, so you can go and have a nice drink of water and a bit of a rest of your voice. But what have we got coming up next week?
So, Tuesday, we've got a fantastic interview episode with Hannah Allison, where we talked all about storybook maths, how we can bring maths to life using stories. Becky, I know that is a favourite subject of yours as well. And I'm sure we can both talk a bit more about that next Friday too.
That'd be great.
AfterMaths episode, which is we'll also be focusing a little bit on structure or script, asking whether the structure we put in place to help teachers is actually doing that anymore, or whether it's just become a bit of a script to follow.
Yeah, looking forward to that, John. I know it's something that we've alluded to a few times, so that's good. Yeah. And I think, John, you're also starting a LinkedIn conversation today on that topic as well. So if people want to chime in on that, and maybe we can talk about some of their comments next week as well, that would be great. So please join in. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss next Tuesday's great interview episode on Storybook Maths. Take care, everyone, but particularly Jon. Please feel better for next week, Jon, and we'll see everybody next week.
Yeah, thank you for bearing with us this week. We'll see you next week. Take care.